What a Catch, Part 116, a Miraculous Ladybug Fanfiction. If you have not heard the previous 115 parts of this story, you can find a link to them in the description box below. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on the latest parts of your favorite fanfiction. Now then, on to What a Catch. Plagg and Tiki sat atop the television as their kids talked, yelling with emotion, but not at each other. They could understand the children's worries. Hawkmoth was Adrian's dad, and his Miraculous was nowhere to be found. The question of what to do with the former Miraculous holder was also discussed. Turn him in? Hide him? Pretend they saw nothing because he isn't a threat if he doesn't have a Miraculous? More ideas bounced around, such as he wasn't Hawkmoth and it was just an illusion. But one thing remained clear as the tension in the room grew even higher. Gabriel Agreste was alive and breathing, but someone, maybe even himself, went through a lot of work to convince the world he died of cancer. Yeah, usually I'd be all about sending him to prison, Chloe said. But this man is my family as well. I can't be near this decision. I say criminalize him, Alia stated. The Kwamis glanced at each other, wondering if they should break their silence. This was a decision left up to their masters. They shouldn't intervene unless the fate of a Miraculous got involved.
Well, one of two things is going to happen. Either we leave the decision up to Adrian, or we exclude him entirely, Nino said, breaking the silence he'd adhered to over the last half hour. The room went quiet, knowing he was right. Adrian hadn't commented on the conversation either, choosing to curl up and observe from the corner instead. It was a delicate situation, and they knew better than to say anything. This was a choice for their masters to make. Put him in my bedroom. All eyes turned to Adrian. Your bedroom? Alia said. Yeah, I can turn on the security system. The windows will be barred, and there won't be any incoming reception. There are books and movies, so it's not like keeping him in a jail cell, although he might find himself just as trapped. There's an irony here for sure, Nino said. Shut up. Even Plagg was surprised. No matter what he'd gone through, Adrian was excellent at being polite to his peers. He could only imagine what the kid was feeling and decided to break his silence. I agree with watchdogs. All eyes turned to him. Watchdogs? Alia asked. Carapace and Rena Rouge on the first shift while we look for his Miraculous. We'll have to interrogate him when he wakes anyway, Plagg said. Marinette was the one who looked most uncomfortable, surprisingly. Plagg could feel Tiki giving him a death stare, but chose not to look. She'd have a word or two to say about his interference, but he didn't care. This was more important than the Kwami code. Adrian gave him a small nod before standing up to leave the room, likely to get some air. He wasn't sure whether or not to follow him. The kid needed a talking to, but perhaps it would be better to wallow alone for a bit first. He hadn't had the time to process the situation by himself since he'd learned his father was the villain he'd fought for years, among other things. I guess I'll take first watch, Alia said, standing up. I've got a better idea. All eyes turned to Marinette. And what's that? Chloe asked. We get someone who knows him better than all of us to talk to him. Who? Adrian? If you can't tell, he's pretty much... No. Someone he trusts. And who would that be, Mare Bear? Lila. The room went silent again. Lila? Plagg considered the possible outcomes. They were either shooting themselves in the foot or hit jackpot. It depended on how dedicated the girl was to a different version of herself. Marinette, I don't know if that's such a good, Alia began. How many times does she have to prove she's changed? She asked. Alia blinked in surprise, then laughed. Who would have thought, after all this time, you're the one advocating for her? She sighed and looked away. I'm going to bring her in. Be careful, Chloe said. I always am. Don't be ridiculous. Just because you married a rich man doesn't mean you aren't just as clumsy as before. The girls laughed at the retort. Okay. I'll make sure you keep a close eye on her. Ugh, why me? Because you're someone who was successful in the attempt to develop personal character. You use too many words, you know that? Plagg felt himself calm down at the somewhat lighter atmosphere. Yeah, the kids were all right. They were smarter than he'd given them credit for. He floated up to find Adrian, knowing it was time for a pep talk. He'd let the other kids handle the rest. Thank you so much for listening. Part 117 is on its way. In the meantime, you can check out these other videos for more fanfiction. I'll catch you next time.